Hello and welcome to the Gale Hill Radio Hour. I'm your host, Kate Jones, here with David Schunk, creator and host of Voice of Adoptees, a podcast that empowers and connects adopted people around the world. In this excerpt from a longer interview, Dave shares his own story about being adopted when he was 2 and what it was like to travel back to Russia as a young adult with his adoptive parents. You went to Russia with your mom. Did your adopted mom, your adoptive
Yes,
mom?
that is correct.
Yes.
Yeah. My adopted dad came too,
Oh,
but
okay.
he couldn't stay as long. He had to get back to the U.S. because both of the doctors out of the practice for too long wasn't going to work, so he had to go back a little early. But it was really fun to travel with my mom. We had a blast. It was amazing. I actually had her on my podcast a couple weeks ago with an episode kind of reminiscing, and she got to really open up my eyes and, from an adoptive parent's point of view, share what it was like adopting a child, in the middle of wintertime in the 90s in Russia.
Oh, my gosh.
And the stories and getting me out of there quickly, and how the laws were changing constantly, and everyone's on edge because the adoption could have got canceled at any minute. It was very traumatic for them. So, but, they got me out, and I'm glad. But so when we went back, it was just surreal. I mean, the whole experience I felt like a dream. It really hit me when we were taking a train ride from Moscow to my city, Smolensk, and just my adopted mom and I were just like standing across the little, it's called a coupe, in the trains where you have the bunks and everything. And we were across the hallway and just watching the countryside out the window, and just seeing the Russian, like the dachas, that's what they're called, the homes in the countryside. And we get to the train station, and we get off the train, and surprise, there's my whole Russian family there waiting for me.
Seriously?
And,
so they were
yeah.
expecting you.
Yeah, because they asked me, they're like, "Oh, when are you coming?" And I'm like, "Oh, I'll be there in the morning." And then they asked, "Are you driving?" And I'm like, "Oh, no, I take the train." So I guess we were the only train from Moscow arriving, so it was pretty easy.
Was your birth mom there?
No, not at the arrival.
Okay.
She wasn't. I connected with her later, but she was traveling. She was out in Siberia at the time, so traveling was a little difficult. But it was, I had cousins, aunts, uncles, great aunts, great uncles.
And a grandmother too?
Yeah. I had my grandmother and grandfather there, and that was just amazing. And that was just my mother's side. I got to meet some of my father's side of the family over there as well. My father's mother, so my other grandmother on the father's side, and I met my birth father's brother, so my uncle on his side, and it was all just so crazy. I mean, just the whole thing, just thinking about it it's just like a magical moment mixed in like a storm cloud of uncertainty.
Yes.
Like it that makes any sense, but it was just awesome, and then my mom and I really bonded in a way that I don't think a lot of people could describe, and I don't think we even could describe it, but it says a lot when, you have a woman who went over to Russia in the 90s to get a child and raise him, and then, 20, 24, 23 years later, back in Russia with the same child at the same orphanage, and you're with him, and he's your son now, and now you're looking and showing him where he came from. I mean, it's just, it was crazy. And she was very quiet, and I was very quiet during the trip. And she made a good point. She told me the other night that I was quiet because this was your trip, this was your story, and I wanted you to kind of take it all in. And I'm only here for support if you need me. And she was very good. She didn't ask questions. She just was there if I needed her. And she told me, she admitted that she was actually starting to get a little concerned because for the entire time in Russia, I didn't really say much to her about how I was feeling or anything until it was the last night and we were in Smolensk, and we were getting ready to go back to the capital and then fly back to America. And we were just sitting outside. It was very quiet, having dinner. And then I just looked at my mom and I said, I'm ready to go home. And she just burst out crying. And she's like, I'm so happy you said that. And I held myself together pretty well too, until it was the departure at the train platform. And then I just bawled my eyes out, and it got a lot of strange looks, but it was an amazing experience.
It's Kate again. Dave definitely wants to hear other people's stories about adoption, so please share this episode with anyone you know who might be interested. You can reach him by visiting his website, voiceofadoptees.com. To hear the rest of his interview, please go to the Gale Hill Radio Hour episode titled A Russian Adoption with podcaster David Schunk. Until next time, thanks for joining us. Please share this episode with people you know who are adoptees, adoptive parents, adoption advocates and professionals, and birth families. Thank you.